we got some breaking news, folks. And again, this story comes to us from Jez Corden of Windows Central, also of the Xbox 2 podcast with Randall Thor. And he wrote a story this morning. Now, again, I saw a lot of different people reporting on it. Hazardor Gaming had something up. Clobriel also had something up. I saw a few other people posting it, but I didn't see any stories. And this is an actual written article on Windows Central, which, of course, I will include into the show notes of today's show. So if you want to give it a read, you can go and do that. Well, the lead title says this, folks. Starfield's Shattered Space expansion hasn't even launched yet, but we may have already known the name of the next DLC set for 2025. Shattered Space hasn't even hit the launch pad yet, but the next Starfield expansion might have just been outed. In the What You Need to Know section, he goes on to say this, folks. Starfield is the most recent game from Bethesda's core team behind the Elder Scrolls and the mainline Fallout games. Starfield is an expansive sci-fi odyssey whose galactic ambitions garnered it to be a bit of a mixed reception among Bethesda's core fans, despite attracting millions of players. Starfield has received solid post-launch support thus far, and many are hoping that the upcoming expansion, Shattered Space, will add even more of the new features. Finally, it goes on to say, but what about after 2024? A new trademark suggests that the next Starfield expansion may indeed be called Starborn. Now, look, obviously, no spoilers here, folks. The Starborn play a massive and major role into the story of Starfield. Again, this is a trademark. It is probably going to be called something else, but this is what they put down, Fuzzy, as the trademark holding spot, Starborn. I would imagine it is going to be a continuation of the Shattered Space DLC that we are expected to get later this year. This is a big deal. And I think what it says to anyone that has already invested, plenty of time, potentially hundreds of hours into this game, is that it doesn't seem like there is light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the content ending, right? Like there's no end to the content, whether it be mod support, it's there. Whether it be new, upgrades for the current system, we're getting that on a regular basis. Things that didn't work are now working. Sometimes these updates, they break the game. It hasn't happened as of yet, but at least the updates are coming. We do have, of course, the big update that's going to include land vehicles. I freaking can't wait. It's really going to change how I personally explore a planet, how long I stay on said planet, because at least now you're going to be able to drive around instead of jumping around, which gets a little monotonous, to be honest. But we have Shattered Space. We know that it's going to be on one planet, Fuzzy. We know it's going to be a tight narrative, a story-driven, adventure that's going to be you stuck on this planet. And, well, we don't know why. We don't know why you can't fly to another planet, but I'm sure they will tell us. And maybe it's something like the ship got stolen. Maybe it got exploded. I don't know, but we're going to find out soon enough. But I got to tell you, knowing already that they are locked and loaded for 2025 and the next expansion should give anyone confidence that the time that you invested into this game is not for nothing. Let's get your hot take there, Fuzzy.
Well, first of all, I'm still, I haven't touched it in a little bit, but I'm still a huge fan of Starfield. And Starborn being the copyright or trademark name, potentially with the DLC being centered around that, I'm all for it, because that was one of those things that we kind of saw at the tail end of the original trailer, where it's like almost like the Jedi type powers and stuff. And the fact that they had that mixed into a game where it made sense, and you're pretty much going through different dimensions to hopefully further those powers or strengthen those powers and things along those lines. Hopefully no spoilers. I mean, the game's been out a little or close to a year at this point, so hopefully I'm not spoiling anything, but like when it comes to the whole Starborn like lore and everything behind that, and if they go deeper into that and how it either came to be or somehow some of the encounters that you've come across, you wind up reliving those, but on the other side of how the Starborn are themselves. I'm all for it. I mean, they had a cool spaceship. Well, they have a cool spaceship in the game. If you haven't already, fought one of those or acquired one of those through progress in the game and stuff like that. But imagining that there's probably a like a hub of Starborn or like a planet of just Starborn, which it could be like almost the equivalent of like a
That
GTA
is dope.
5 planet itself at that point. Lawlessness, all to the wind kind of thing. But I'm curious to see, just based on the tech and some of the stuff as far as the abilities that the Starborn have. I'm curious to see if they take that even further, where there's like almost like Highlander, there can only be one thing, where it might wind up being, not say a battle royale or anything along those lines, but have it where your objective is to be the most powerful Starborn and maybe end all of the other Starborns before they further their powers, or something to that effect. But it'd be curious to see just how deep this next DLC goes. I'm already pumped for Shattered Space. Looking forward to finding out more about the House of Arun, and see if there's a way to either join or fall into that a little bit deeper than what you can in the current story and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely I'm definitely looking forward to it. So can't wait.
My next question for you, Fuzzy, is, shout out to Will Broke Boy Lewis, who says, wait, wait, wait. According to the blue team or blue side, Starfield's a dead game. Why is it getting more updates? Sarcasm. Now, he's right. Depending on what publication you read, depending on who you listen to on the socials, what podcasts you add to your playlist, some are good, bad, some are just outright terrible. This game has a stigma of not being a finished product. And folks, I don't think I need to reiterate the fact that this game is incredible. There's no way a bad game gets people like Nico, for instance, who's in the chat, to put 1,000 hours into a game, right? There's no way a gamer like Fuzzy Belvedere is going to have 4 different saves with 4 different characters. Again, maybe it's too deep of an RPG for you. And if that's the case, then maybe you've never played a Bethesda game, because usually these games are vast. Whether it be Elder Scrolls, whether it be Fallout, whether it be Starfield, these games are deep and they're big and they give you a lot to do and a lot of freedom to do it. I'm just curious to the stigmatism behind the game that has over 14 million players. I understand it's in Game Pass. I totally get that. But this game is going to continue to grow, like Forza, like Halo, like Gears, like the other Bethesda games before it in Fallout and Elder Scrolls. And millions upon millions of players are going to experience this, and they're going to come back. People like myself who stepped away because they did run through it. I ran through it once. I started my second playthrough. I put a couple hours in. I messed around a little bit with the mods. I don't even know how they work, to be honest with you. I could not get my armor on. We'll talk behind the scenes, Fuzzy. You can explain to me what the heck I'm doing wrong here. But needless to say, this game got legs. Yeah. Anything you want to add additionally about people that are going to see this story, that are going to try and poo-poo it? Because I don't see how this is a bad thing, which some podcasts, some content creators are going to try and reverse the engines here and make new DLC, leaked DLC, and the updates a bad thing.
I always look at those that try to spin a story of gaming, positive gaming, or just people enjoying stuff as like not just grifters, but it's like they're in the wrong hobby. Maybe they should join the debate team and debate, other more pertinent things to humanity kind of deal, because I don't understand. Like, there were a few people on Steam, for example, that had 400 plus hours of playing the game and gave it a bad review. Like, I don't want to say they have mental issues, but like, if I'm not enjoying a game, I'm not giving it 100 hours, let alone 400 hours. Like, I think I would put it down within like the first few hours. But if I'm more persistent to like, hey, maybe it gets better as time goes on, I might give it 20 hours. But if it hasn't grabbed me at 20 hours, that's it. That there's no more of me beating my head against the wall. But there are people out there that put in 400 plus hours and it's like, oh, it's a bad game. I didn't like anything about it. And it's like, well, what were you doing for 400 hours at that point if you didn't enjoy yourself? Um, I always look at the blue team that complain about this game. The minute it gets announced, if it ever does, not putting that out there to speak it into existence or anything along those lines, but if it was announced that it was coming over there, they'd be like celebrating in the streets. One, they don't have a sci-fi game.
Right.
There's rumors that Barlog is working on something. Haven't heard hide or hair about it, so they can keep on wishing and dreaming in that regard. But if it was to come over there, all of a sudden, oh, it's we have No Man's Sky. They would forget all about No Man's Sky and be eating up the Bethesda greatness that this game is. I mean, if you've played a Bethesda game before, this is everything that you've probably wanted out of those games in a sci-fi environment mixed in. Sure, they didn't have land vehicles. I don't really consider it that bad of a deal, but they are listening and adding them at a later date. So look forward to those. I mean, there have been mods out there that, at least on the PC side of things, I'm not sure on the mod store itself, but there have been mods out there that have added mech suits and other land vehicles before. So it's only a matter of time before a lot of other things that you would like to see in this game exist. Like, there's already people that have made lightsabers. They don't call them lightsabers because of licensing and whatnot, but it's like, this game has not all right. Before you even get to the potential of the mods, it has everything that you would ask out of an RPG. And if you're not really into an RPG, I can kind of understand it. You don't have to play this like an RPG, because get you still level up no matter what you do. As far as those things are going to matter, as far as use your preferred weapons of choice, they're going to level up. You use your preferred method of attack or transportation, it's going to level up. You use your preferred method of travel or movement, it's going to level up. So
Yep.
all of those things, you could just play it as, oh, it's an action game and shoot everything that moves kind of deal, and you're still going to get some enjoyment out of it. But for the people that always try to make it seem like, oh, it's a dead game, why are they still supporting it? Obviously, somebody at Microsoft and Bethesda has the metrics to see that it's not a dead game. Sure, there might not be these high numbers of concurrent players because it's a single player game. Those concurrent numbers on Steam usually are centered around something being either recently released, or if it's a multiplayer where, hey, you don't want to have to wait for a match. It's a single player game. You play at your own pace. I wish it had co-op. I'm pretty sure people will mod a co-op type version in it, or maybe they'll just make a open world or MMO out of this down the road. But outside of that, I don't care how many people are playing it on Steam. All I know is if I'm playing it on my Xbox or if I'm playing it on my PC and I'm having a good time, the people that say that this is a waste of space or whatever, I guess they're saying the same thing about No Man's Sky, considering how old that game was and how it cratered shortly after its release because it didn't deliver on its promises. I'm sure they're up in arms about the expansions that always come out for that, or expansions that come out for any game that's more than a couple of years old. I mean, most games you lose 90% of their player base within the first 6 months, except for some multiplayer games, but even those struggle to keep people on. So I don't know. I come to gaming for the enjoyment, for the entertainment, not to scrutinize to see how many players are playing this very minute, or if this game is a game of a generation. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's a game of a generation for the fact that 10 years from now, people will still be playing this game in modded versions, updated versions, or maybe even potential sequels. I think this game has the legs to carry on, much like the Fallout series, much like the Elder Scrolls series. And for those that don't see it, either they're blind or they're intentionally being this disingenuous curmudgeon or whatever about for whatever reason. And I really don't understand it. It's like, if you if you're a gamer, you're looking to have fun. If this isn't your game, I get it. I totally get it. Like Souls like games are not my games, but I'm not like they should put a stop to these games because it's terrible. It's like they're so hard, and in the reviewing crowd can't do honest reviews because some of them can't even get through the game. No, you're not going to hear that come out of my mouth. It's like, oh, it's a Souls like game. I might try it. All right, I beat my head against the wall, or I threw my controller. I'll move on to the next game. I'm not going to say they should cancel all Souls-like games because people enjoy those. It's just not enjoyment for me, but I move on. I'm not going to harp over those things. But, people, I guess, they have more fun not being happy than enjoying the hobby that they supposedly love. I don't know.